right face, about face, parade, rest. In late June of 1981, my father took me out in the backyard and showed me basic military movements. He showed me how to stand at the position of attention, how to have my heels together and my feet at a particular angle. He showed me how to cup my hands and put my thumb along the seam of my trousers. He also gave me 2 pieces of advice. 1, there are SOBs wherever you go. And 2, always have a sense of humor. This was my father's idea of preparing me for West Point. The United States Military Academy at West Point is our nation's oldest service academy. Since 1802, it's been providing officers for the United States Army. West Point was designed by men, for men, and for the first 174 years of its existence was all men. In the summer of 1976, 5 years before my father took me out in that backyard, women reported to West Point for the first time. Out of 119, only 62 of them would graduate. The West Point program is a very rigorous and challenging one that combines academics, athletics, and military training in a regimented Spartan atmosphere. The women in that first class went through the same 47-month program as the men, but on top of it, they endured sexism, misogyny, and hate from male cadets and faculty, many of them West Point graduates. Yet the women persisted. The women strove to be what the men cadets strove to be, good cadets who would become good officers. But what did a good cadet look like? What was the model cadet? Well, first of all, the model cadet was a man, and usually a white man. The model cadet was tall. He was athletic and physically fit. He was smart, but not too smart. He had good military bearing and looked handsome in his gray cadet uniform. He was a leader, but ultimately, he was a man. What was the woman cadet to do? She could try to do all the things good cadets do, but she quickly learned she would have to be far more than just good. And God forbid she did something wrong or fell short in some way. If a man's performance wasn't up to par, the men cadets would say, he's a slacker, or at worst, a bad cadet. If a woman's performance wasn't up to par, the men cadets would say, see, this is why women shouldn't be at West Point. Still, the women persisted. While the women in that first class led the way through a painful transition, it's not like women in subsequent years were completely accepted. For one thing, there weren't very many women at West Point. Even today, women make up less than 25% of the Corps of Cadets that trains to become officers in a traditionally male-dominated, very masculine army. That said, women have succeeded at West Point. Women do well academically, athletically, and militarily. Women earn similar grades as men. And in that very first class, Andrea Holland became a Rhodes Scholar. Multiple women since then have earned Rhodes, Marshall, Truman, and other national scholarships. Women do well in individual and team sports. Today, there are 10 varsity women teams and multiple club teams. Women have held all the positions within the cadet chain of command. And in 1989, just 13 years after women first entered the academy, Kristen French became the first woman brigade commander, or first captain, the highest ranking cadet position. Although several women since then have been first captain, this past year, Simone Askew became the first African-American woman first captain. She was also a stellar student and rowed for the West Point Army crew team. Today, she's in England as a Rhodes Scholar. She excelled in all 3 areas. So women have been doing far more than just good at West Point for over 40 years. And they've gone out into the Army and been firsts and broken barriers out there. But not without a lot of challenges and not without a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I recently did a study on women in leadership at West Point. 116 women, representing every single class with women from 1980 through current classes, participated. While the women talked about leadership opportunities and lessons learned, They also described experiences with sexism, misogyny, and sexual misconduct. Although these stories were more prevalent from women in the earlier classes, discussion of sexism and misogyny spread across all 4 decades, including current cadets. So women have been far more than just good, and so West Point women have been they have accomplished all this through access, yes, and talent, but most of all, persistence. For over 40 plus years, West Point women have faced a lot of pushback. Often it's been 1 step forward, 2 steps back, but we have persisted and are still persisting. So let's go back to that model cadet for a moment. I said the model cadet was a man, tall, athletic, smart, military bearing, a leader. That's the important part, the leader. And within that, character. So I would argue that the model cadet was wrong. The important takeaway is that the model cadet is not a physical model. Rather, the model cadet that all cadets can emulate is one based on character and behavior. West Point trains cadets to become leaders of character. The West Point motto is duty, honor, country. So West Point women the West Point motto is duty, honor, country. This motto engenders professionalism, integrity, and service. So West Point women have gone out and shown that what really matters is who you are and what you do, not your gender. So before I close my presentation today, I want to leave you with one final point. Just as West Point women have helped recreate the model cadet, so women are recreating models throughout our society. Model doctors, model engineers, model scientists, I could go on and on. What really matters is what these leaders do and how they do what they do. In 1988, President Reagan made a rare change to the Code of Conduct. The Code of Conduct now says, I am an American fighting in the forces which guard my country and our way of life. So if you're doing something no one like you has ever done before, be like a West Point woman. Be persistent, be resilient, and eventually the world will catch up with you. Thank you.